Greetings. I have the pleasure of sitting here to visit with Greg Simon, who is the CEO of Polliwogg, and we're going to learn about Polliwogg, including how the Polliwogg got its name, and also talk a little bit about Life Science Innovation Northwest. So, Greg, start with Polliwogg. Why Polliwogg?
Well, Polliwogg is the name that we came up with after our founder, Jeff Feldman, described his idea to his wife. And the idea was to let more and more people invest in early stage companies through a new law that passed last year in April called the Jobs Act. So he asked his wife, what should I call this? And his wife came back and said, what you're really doing is creating a set of lily pads for people to be able to gather to fund things they care about. So you should call it Tadpole. And they both agreed that was a stupid name, so they called it Polliwogg.
That's right. That's very sweet. So the name is charming, but the idea is strategically powerful. You've just been telling me about it, but for the benefit of the people who are watching this, what's changed in the legislation and the regulations that's going to enable Polliwogg to do something that's never been done before? What's different, and what's the Polliwogg strategy?
Well, most people don't know that last April, when the president signed the Jobs Act, the only legislation supported by a majority of both parties, I might add, it's the biggest change in securities laws since Franklin Roosevelt. But most people didn't pay attention at the time. I don't blame them. But what it does is it does three really important things. It lets small companies raise more money from more people and still be regulated as a small company. What that means is that an investor, and we're talking accredited investors, people who make $200,000 a year or who have $1 million net worth, it's really risky to put 100 or 200,000 on one company. That's why it's so hard to raise money. Under the new law, you could put as little as 10,000 or 15,000 on a company, which means that an investor can diversify. That's number one. Number two, it allows for the first time since 1974 a company to advertise to the general public that it's raising money for a private company. The SEC just yesterday adopted the final rule on that, which means that starting in September, you'll be able to do something you couldn't do before, which is advertise a private offering the way you can advertise anything else in the economy.
These probably won't be Super Bowl ads.
No.
But how will smart companies who want to do this, how will they advertise?
Well, we're a smart company. I'll tell you how we're going to do it.
That's the right answer.
We're going to find people where they live. And in other words, we're interested in people who are interested in health because they have a personal reason to be interested in health. So we're working with the foundations that fund Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, autism, cancer. And we know that there are crowds of people who believe in those attempts, and believe in those efforts.
And they're knowledgeable because they care.
They're very knowledgeable. So we're working with those foundations that start a company. The problem is, as you know, we have this thing called the Valley of Death. Who wants to invest in the Valley of Death? We think of it as the bridge of life.
That's better. That's much better.
Much better. If you care about Alzheimer's, and I can advertise to the people who fund the Alzheimer's Association, and I can find them on social media. I can say, if you care about Alzheimer's, come to Polliwogg and look at the companies that we're raising money for that are working on Alzheimer's. Now, before yesterday, I had to do that one person at a time. Today, I can put an ad on Facebook, or I can go to Twitter, or I can go to the newspaper and say, if you care about Parkinson's, here are 5 companies Michael J. Fox Foundation has been funding. We're raising more money for them. And that's how we find those people.
Wow. So this little Polliwogg could become a pretty big deal.
That's the idea. Because nothing starts big, right? My classmate in law school here in Seattle was one of the very first people to go over to Microsoft, and we all thought he was crazy because it was just a little tiny place on the wrong side of the lake. That changed. So our motto is, why buy the frog if you can buy the Polliwogg?
Nice, very good. Well, do you have a specific set of domains that you're going to be first focused on in terms of raising?
We're looking at we're looking at therapeutics, devices, health IT, care management devices to take care of elderly people and be able to inform doctors and the family on a real-time basis what's going on with the patient. So we're looking at anything that we think will move the ball forward in any area of healthcare and things that people would care about. We think that something I call passion capital is in large supply. But the problem has been you couldn't connect that capital to private companies.
Right.
And because of the Jobs Act and platforms like Polliwogg, you can now connect those groups.
Right. People might well be prepared to invest considerably more than they feel comfortable giving.
Exactly, or both.
In an area, yeah, of course, and do continue to be donors, but also to have for the first time the ability to be an investor at this level.
That's right. And you know, the problem with not a problem really, but what happens, a foundation finds a scientist with a good idea and no money, and they give him some money. And then he turns into a guy who needs more money. And where's he going to get it? The VCs have left the space. And your friends and family can just carry you so far.
Right.
That's where Polliwogg comes in. We look to raise between $2 and $10 million so that companies can rise or fail based on their idea, not because they couldn't get the attention of a VC fund that won't even talk to you if you don't need $20 million.
If I put Polliwogg into a search engine, will I find you?
You will.
That's great.
But you have to spell it right. P-O-L-I-W-O-G-G.
I got it. All right, well, we're here in Seattle at this conference. Tell us about the value of this for what you're trying to do and your impressions of Life Science Innovation Northwest, please.
Well, you know, I've been associated with Seattle for a long, long time. I moved here in '78, and I went to Washington to work on the first hearings on biotech in the mid-'80s. So I've had a long connection with biotech in the Northwest.
Right.
And you know, our motto at Polliwogg is the best is yet to fund. And everywhere you go, you hear people say, oh, you know, the valley of death, things are going bad, we're not going to get there.
Right.
Innovation Northwest is an example that the best is yet to fund. It's filled with the kind of companies that are going to change people's lives. And from our standpoint, if you take the power to invest in the future and expand it to a much larger population, there are 8 million accredited investors in America. Only 3% have ever invested in a private company. So places like Innovation Northwest are now, under the new Jobs Act, and platforms like Polliwogg are going to be the feeders for people who are passionate about the future of health and realize that the best really is yet to fund. And now they have a way to fund it. And we see companies every day that are doing wonderful things who can't get money. I do not buy the idea that if they're a good company, they've already got the money, and if they can't get money, they're not a good company. That assumes the VC model works really well, and it doesn't. It's broken. That's why the Jobs Act is a real game changer.
So, constructive conversations here, encouragement from the people you talk to?
Oh, I tell you, we get more incoming than we can handle. People are very, very excited because they want to have more control over their company's future. They don't want to have to give away half the company to a VC to get to the next stage. They want to reach out to people who care about what they're doing. And so I find that people are very, very excited. Now, there are always skeptics. There are always people who say, well, won't there be more fraud? Well, actually, transparency from crowdfunding is the antithesis of fraud. Bernie Madoff is Bernie Madoff because he did all of his deals in secret and private. If he had put up on a website what he was doing with your money, he would never have gotten anybody to invest.
Right.
So from our standpoint, the transparency is going to be a great thing. And it also, there's a big difference between failure and fraud. We want companies to try, and with many of them, most of them may fail. But as you know, in health, failure is part of the deal.
Right.
You can't get there without failure. We can't be afraid to fund things just because they may fail, because if you can fund 10 companies with the same pot of money that you used to only buy one, 9 of them fail and 1 of them doesn't, you're not going to worry about the other 9.
My good friend Bill Figge once said, if everything we try works, then we're not trying enough stuff.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
If you don't have any failures, you're not really stretching. You know?
Well, this is very exhilarating and exciting. This is very cool what you're doing, and we certainly wish you the best. Obviously, there's a major role to be filled here, and you can help feed the innovation as well as contribute to it. So
I look forward to it.
Yeah,
it's very exciting.
Thanks for being part of the conversation here today.
Thanks, Jack.
Greg. Take care.
You bet.